What's up, everybody? I'm Greg Miller. Troy Baker's here to tell me all about being in every one of your favorite video games. But first, after 8 years at IGN and 3 behind this desk, I'm leaving the company. Why? And what are my favorite Up at Noon memories? Let's find out. This is Up at Noon. Your one panel of experts, my Italian meatball, Brian Altana.
They're dropping like flies.
What do you mean? What? No.
Where's everyone going? There's no more chairs left. There's no.
Brian.
We brought the audience back.
Yeah, we brought the audience back. Hey, thanks for coming.
Thank you, guys.
Last time.
Very real audience.
Yeah, no one. That's the. We're here to try to summarize, put a little pin in 3 years of Up at Noon, and I love the fact that the audience at home, their commitment to never, ever, ever believing those were real people.
We filmed them. We showed them. We brought them up.
Greg Atlas would just yell random things at me, full sentences, and people were like, "No, that's not. That's clearly a laugh track."
That's a machine. Like we have a machine that can replicate the voice of one man saying something very specific during the interview. That would be amazing. That's like Siri's older brother.
Meanwhile, our chairs are still just sandbags.
Yeah, I'm sitting on a sandbag. I'm surrounded by taller hosts, so what can I do?
Yeah, I'm glad you went on the next host you guys hired. You went down a little bit.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I got to stand the whole show. He's on the floor.
Brian.
Hey.
Summarize you and I are the Up at Noon founders, along with Mike Drucker and Nick Scarpino.
Yep.
It's been a long road to here.
Yeah. This has been an incredible show to work on. Up at Noon it almost felt like it was never supposed to happen.
Oh my God, it was never supposed to happen. Are you kidding me?
And that every time we did it, it was like we got away with something.
Yeah.
And we were constantly told by Fran Mirabella, who's executive producer of the show, to why don't you guys take a break? Take a few weeks off. And I was like, if we do that, we'll never come back.
Yeah, well, that was the whole thing. We knew if we ever pumped the brakes, somebody would take us the breath to be like, wait a second.
Wait a minute, what's going on there?
Why are we letting them do this? And how much money do they spend each week on plane tickets and lunch?
Yeah, or how many planning meetings and how many, but it was a weird show to work on with you because we did so much of it ourselves.
Well, yeah, I mean, that what was crazy about it is Up at Noon started as a part of Start, which was this IGN YouTube collaboration to make a new channel and make long form content. And that went on for a year. When that happened, YouTube gave IGN a bunch of money because that was the deal or whatever. Yeah. And this is all publicized. This isn't me breaking it. You can read the Variety article on this. And so we hired Mike Drucker. We hired all these different people to make Cheap, Cool, Crazy, to make all these different shows, to put new content out. And when that deal expired and we got pulled into IGN, that's when it was like, well, okay, but now you need to not take up so much time. We need to lessen the impact of the show. And that's when, the meetings went. You remember these original Up at Noon planning meetings?
Oh my God.
A dozen people around the table. I'm reading 4 different versions of the joke.
Of the same joke.
If you jump to last week's Up at Noon, I literally email you guys the night before. I'm like, here are the topics we're going to talk about on the panel. You're like, what about this topic? That's a better topic. And then we just talked about it like a podcast.
Yeah, it changed a lot over the years, but it was also, like you said, you would go into these rooms and you'd have jokes written and you'd read them to 14 people who weren't even, it's not like when you work on a real comedy show, I assume, the 14 people in the room have a good idea of what that is, but we were working with people. It's like
Drucker comes in. He's like, "Here's the jokes, and here's my freelancers."
Yeah,
we're like, those are great, Drucker.
And then there's one of the guys in the room was just a guy we pay to plug things in, and he was like, "Nah, not funny." We're like, "All right, well that's tough."
All right, we'll try to do that.
But then we would come in here. We made our own chyrons. We made
you did
all the graphics
all the
for the
stuff
show.
That came up from you over my shoulder.
We wrote our own sketches. We wrote our own. We would expense our own costumes. We would. You were editing bits in the show at one point.
Yeah.
We would come in here early, and we would actually set up unfold all the chairs for the audience to sit in ourselves, which is
eventually we got people
Jimmy
to do
Fallon. You have no idea how easy you have.
Well, that's the thing too. I can't tell you how many times we're doing something for the show and my phone will buzz because it's next week's guest, or today Troy Baker is late for this episode.
Yep.
So while I'm doing another show, he's texting me that he's late. I'm talent coordinator. I'm booking the hotels and the flights, and that was always when Up at Noon hit its stride and we started getting big name people, they were always a little weird of oh, I'm talking right to the host. The host is telling me everything. This is amazing. And I'm like, and what's your birth date?
Yep.
And what's your legal name?
What's your social
what are you doing?
Number?
You know what I mean? You have to explain it.
And that was interesting too. Was we got to see when the shows first started out. I think it became the self-fulfilling prophecy. Where to begin with, we were we didn't have a lot of faith in the show, and then our audience didn't, and then our guests didn't. And we had guests who were sort of just it's not a bad quality of guests because they're all human beings and we love them equally. But then we started getting people like Jason Mewes would come on, or Jack Tretton and stuff like that. And it was
you can go back to a specific point in Up at Noon, and it's in the summer where I figured it out finally that I could bring voice actors on, and they were just amazing. That you could just, I could talk, I could be a brick, and they could do whatever, and then it would be amazing. Yeah. And we had like Troy, Ashley, Courtney, Jack, and it was like this trend of like, that's when it really was like, oh my God, and that's when numbers started to come in. That's when other people saw it as a real talk show, as a real, like, something different than just a video game show that we were doing.
Yeah, and I think through that we had a lot of voice actors come on who weren't just associated with video games, and it started to open up a little bit more. Right. Like Rob Paulson came on, and we did this like Ninja Turtles bit with him. Yeah. And it was just sort of like, you were like, Rob Paulson's coming on the show, and I'm like, how do I know that name? Yeah, like, look him up. He voiced your childhood.
Yeah. Animaniacs.
And I looked at every show he's ever done, and I was like, oh my God, it was incredible. And it was like, you know, that was like, doing the show was fascinating, but all the stuff around it was fascinating too, because we got to go to a all expense paid lunch every week before the show. Right. Yeah. It's money in the air.
That's the one?
That's the one.
No, 3 years of Up and Noon. Like,
all right, Team Fat. You don't like food?
I love the free lunch. We drank at everyone, too.
We got to the point where and I want to say the special guest on the show that will never be on the show is a restaurant up the street called Paragon. And when they changed their menu, we got mad. Yeah. Because we were there so often.
The story, if you go back and you watch the episode of Up at Noon, it was filmed in 2 parts, obviously. Yeah. There was the one where we had Wildstar on, and then the next week we had Guild Wars, or it might have been vice versa. Yep. They are the ones that changed the course of the show. Because you and I were still getting used to reading off teleprompters, being in front of a live audience, doing all these different things, because we're podcasting schlubs, right?
Yeah, that's it.
I can talk about whatever. Let me tell you my favorite coffee cup story.
Who needs a script? And you throw papers behind your head,
And so we always came in a bit nervous, or my eye twitched for the first month and a half of the show, and we had to apologize in the show about it.
Yeah, I talk out of the weird side of my mouth.
Yeah, I forgot about that one. But when we went to that lunch, they were the first guests who were like, they were all awesome developers, like, you guys want to drink? And we're like, yeah, why not? And we did 2 drinks. Yep. And we came back and we did the show, and the show finished, and Nick Scarpino, our producer/seducer, was like, all right, great, everybody go ahead. Brian and Greg, hang back a minute, I want to do a post-mort. And he shut the door, and he's like, you guys drank before the show, didn't you? And we're like, yeah. And he's like, do that every time. And Brian and I looked at each other like kids in a candy store. We're like, we can do that, okay.
It was like, there was like a high five and like an 80s flash and the credits.
Freeze frame credits.
Alcoholism. It was great.
So then we did it, and you always had to feel out the guest. Yeah. You'd sit down, and if they went to them first and they didn't order a drink, I'd have to start prefacing to people, we always drink before the show, so if you want, because mind you, it's 11:30. Yeah. It's 11:30 on a weekday, and we're like, oh yeah.
You got a lot of people who are just like, you know, I haven't had a drink in 25 years.
We didn't get a lot of people like that
thing. But you also have some who are like, no, I don't drink alcohol because I'm a voice actor, and this is like my livelihood. Like we had Chi from Persona.
Oh, Erin Fitzgerald.
Erin Fitzgerald. She came on the show and she was like, I don't drink milk and I don't drink booze, and you know everything's important. We were like, oh, cool, milkshakes, cheeseburgers.
Mozzarella stream. I don't know what I'm talking about. No, those lunches were always the most fascinating, because I don't know, you know, they didn't send me to host school before this, so I don't know how Jimmy Fallon does pre-interview or anything. But that was always our chance to sit down and get. First off, if we didn't know them, right? Like when the Pine Sol lady came on, Diane. Like that was like a cool exchange, and then she came and we took her to lunch, and it was like, oh, you have all these great stories, and this is so easy, and that's how you bond.
And thank God for that, right? Because otherwise, I think she would have come on and would have been like, oh, so we booked this as a joke. You're a real person. But it was like, oh wow, you've done all that. You know, this is your life, and this is where you came from, and this is where you grew up, and stuff like that. Yeah. And it turned into like one of our more fascinating episodes. But it was always a weird show to write, because like you said, like no one ever taught us any of this. Right. Like, you know, I knew how to write jokes and be funny, and you knew how to host and read jokes, but like at first we kind of didn't. Like we were writing weird jokes. You didn't. You were known as sort of just like loud equals funny for a while, right? And then it's true.
It's what people know. Now I'm known shirtless is funny.
Now you take off the shirt. You're loud with your body. Yeah. But it took us a while to sort of get this groove, and I was after a while. I was like, you know, I figured out how to kind of write for you, and then you figured out how to write for yourself, and then it all kind of came together, and we did. I mean, the amount, like when a real TV show has like 25 writers working on a monologue, we had 2.5 tops. You know, it was like you, me, and Nick Scarpino. He was always looking at pictures of like the dude that plays Thor.
This is
like
a true thing.
He would be on his phone and he'd just be like, oh yeah, that's really
I don't know how I'm gonna get these Hemsworth abs. Look at these Hemsworth abs.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Nick, we're trying to do the show.
He's like, did you guys see this new Hemsworth video? And we're like, no, stop.
My favorite is like, we would meet on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then film on Thursday. Yeah. And there would be bits we were filming on Wednesday on green screen or whatever for you, and Nick would be like, who approved this? And we were like, you were in the room. Yeah. You were just watching trailers on your mat. Like, cause he was like he was our movie news guy, so that's what he was always trying to get. Yeah. And then he'd fall down the internet rabbit hole.
Well, he was our movie news guy when we gave him that that job, but for the first year, he was the guy on his phone looking at pictures of Chris Hemsworth. But after a while, we're like, look, if you're going to be on the movie sites, or that one specifically, what is Chris Hemsworth working on? He's like, oh, this new movie. And we're like, got it, cool. What movie? Tell us about it. We can write a movie joke.
Yeah. So here's my question for you. How has Up at Noon changed your life?
It's gotten me a lot more comfortable with failure.
Okay. No. Interesting take.
No, really. I think it's because we've done this show. Like, I'm not afraid to bomb anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not afraid to get up in front of the. It was immense pressure to stay up, every Wednesday night until 1 o'clock in the morning, wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning on Thursdays. I did this for 2.5 years. And I would write the show, put it all together in a script, and I'd walk into work, and at 7 o'clock in the morning, Greg Atlas would be sitting there. And every time I saw him, I was like, this is real, we have to do the show today, and this script has to go out no matter what.
Yeah.
And I never really worked like that before. And it sort of, and then I'd get up and we'd do great or we'd bomb, but it didn't matter because we always still had the show.
Yeah, next week there was gonna be another chance to do it again.
Yeah, like no one ever came in and said like, that was the least funny piece of shit I've ever seen in my entire life. We're shutting the whole thing down.
Right.
They had other reasons they wanted to shut it down, but yeah, it really, it taught me how to work in a production with a bunch of people who could, no matter how hard they tried, it could still be a total failure.
Yeah.
But still be really fun, and I'm still glad that we got to do it.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite thing with you, like your evolution, right, and growth, if you will, is the fact that like you had always been funny. You'd always been great on podcasts. You'd always been great on shows. But to see you start to embrace the writing of a joke, right? And like to see you now on your Twitter, the way you craft jokes and put them out there, and you're hitting on topical things, right? Like
it's 100% because of Up and
It's an evolution
100%.
of that. Not to mention, I mean, your place at IGN now, being in front of the camera, being one of the premier hosts, doing all these different things, doing all these different projects. Like that's all from this. And we.
I know. It's weird. I just focused on the failure. So what about you? I mean, this is. I've seen you go from like kind of weird, awkward interviews. Like I always say this, but if you watch the first like 10 episodes of Up at Noon, it looks like a cable TV show from the 80s.
Yeah, we're shooting in Mom's basement. It looks like Wayne's World.
Your hair is like weird and thick, and you have the cheapest suit on.
Yeah,
that's right, the oversized suit that didn't fit you. And you were in these interviews, and it was like really weird and awkward. And then I remember like. Forget who it was. Like a couple years later, you were just like, it didn't matter who got put in front of you.
Yeah.
You were just playing music with them.
Right.
Like you were a sax, or no, you're a tuba.
Yeah.
You're totally a tuba. And people would come in here and be like, I don't know what instrument goes with this, and you'd be like, I got a tuba. That's how it started. But after a while, you're like, I'm gonna play some tuba underneath this delicate piano or this rock guitar, and you made it work with everybody. It was amazing.
Yeah. No, I mean, like Up at Noon changed my life in every aspect of it. You know what I mean? The fact that it's one of those like bittersweet thing, I'm sure, but like if it wasn't for Up at Noon, I wouldn't be leaving IGN right now.
Yeah.
IGN, gave me this opportunity to be this host, and that took me to VidCon, and that taught me about YouTube, and then they gave me this platform to, I'm lucky enough that when I was like, I'm leaving IGN, this is what's happening. People are like, oh my God, but you're the face of IGN, right? And they had to change like the YouTube banner and do little things like that, and that's obviously a humbling experience for me that they put that much faith and trust in me. And the fact that 3 years before this, for sure, I was a big personality on the site. People knew me from Podcast Beyond. People knew me from reviews and whatnot. But I wasn't looked at, we're doing this on-camera thing, we need Greg.
Yeah.
We're doing E3, and it's going to be all interviews. We want it to be just Damon and Greg. We're going to Comic-Con, we need Damon and Greg. You know what I mean? These kind of things. I wasn't looked at in that vein.
No, you physically looked like a weird child back then.
Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. I still look like a weird
child.
No,
I mean, you're like a weird older child now, but you're one of those like, when you look at those before and after galleries of like child actors, and you're like, oh, he turned out okay.
Yeah.
You turned out okay.
Sure, thank you. That means a lot to me. That means a lot to me. Thank you very much.
And I remember that because it was just sort of like little by little you just got out there more and more and more.
Sure.
And you're right, it was we put you there, and from there you're going to the next thing.
Yeah.
And it's a lot like if you're dating someone and you're like, you should go to the gym, and then you buy them a gym pass and they go, and then they start having sex with the personal trainer there.
I guess it's like that.
That's you quitting. Thank you. I needed one more. What? That's you quitting this job for the thing that we kind of like put you in the direction of.
Yeah.
So it's really beautiful. I'm really happy to see it, and there's a really good message that I've learned from you, and that's that you should fight as hard as possible to follow your dreams, and when you reach them, quit.
There's always
and do it all over again.
The IGN motto: there's always another level. I'm going to.
There is.
Brian, it's been a pleasure working with you.
Greg, I love you so much.
You're one of my best friends. I love you very much. You know, it's just one of Speaking of people I love, Greg Way, I love my next guest. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for one of the fiercest voices in video games, Troy Baker. Troy Baker.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
And you are?
Oh, Greg Miller. I have this new show I've been starting up here. Thank you for gracing us with your presence. Yeah. Up at noon, just getting going.
Oh, this new show.
Yeah,
I wasn't sure which new show.
Oh, no, you're talking about over there. Troy Baker, thank you so much for coming in.
Dude, of course.
They said you have one show left, Greg, and I said Dave Fenoy. And when he was too busy, I said Troy Baker.
And then I said Nolan North. Yeah. Nolan North wasn't available. Then I say, well, can you also?
What's that Jennifer Hale lady doing?
Yeah, man. And then I was like, hey, I was actually hanging outside the IGN building, and I was like, hey, dude.
Remember
no,
me?
we don't want you to come back on. We remember what happened last time. So
Yeah. I noticed you did not bring any Jameson this time.
There was no Jameson. I was, I know. I am remiss. I think I was the first person to incorporate the demon spirit upon this show.
You set us off on a dangerous precedent right
Actually, it was your fault.
Was it?
Yeah, we passed by your desk, and I'm looking at everything, and there's like a cornucopia of hooch on your desk. And I was like, ooh, Jameson. You're like, yeah, man, go ahead. Being a gracious guest, or a gracious host, I'm the ingracious guest. I was like, hey, and I just grabbed the whole bottle, and then we did the show.
Right.
So
yeah, you did that, and then Ashley tried to keep up when she came on, and that didn't work out well for her.
What? Did she try to drink
Oh, yeah, Johnson was trying to drink the Jameson, too.
Oh, man.
That just, I think she moved around in the chair and thought it made a fart noise, and then she talked about that for 5 minutes.
Ashley can put down the whiskey, too.
Yeah. Then David Hayter came on, he drank, too. He couldn't hang either, he got drunk.
David Hayter is actually, he's a wine guy.
Yeah, that's what happened to him?
So, and David Hayter on a, it's a terrible thing to see a man on the end of a wine binge. No, we did a convention together in San Antonio. We had a great night where we just like sat down at this bar and just got drunk on wine and shared stories and everything else. And he's a good dude.
So now, speaking of stories, Greg Way, what's going on here? What is this whole look
I
going on?
don't know anymore, man.
The other day I was Googling you, as I do, and I'm in the Google images.
It's just random. It's like, who is this person?
My girlfriend's like, oh, that's his anime phase. When it was like one of the.
Oh, dude, no. Do you remember like the Final Fantasy phase was pretty bad. I like had Ryu hair. It was bad. It was super bad. But I don't know what's going on. I mean, a lot of it is, I don't know, this is the most awkward arm crossing ever. Did you see that was the most defensive position?
It seems like you're gonna sit Indian style and float away on a carpet.
We can't see Indian style
What do we
anymore.
say now?
We have
Crisscross-legged?
Crisscross applesauce.
That is not true.
It is the new accepted nomenclature for putting your legs together in an awkward way.
Well, God damn it, I'm 32 years old and I was raised this way.
We can't even say Native American style because that's still offensive because we can't assume that they sit that way. It has to be So the way that we would automatically assume that most Native American people sit is crisscross applesauce. That's what we refer to it as.
Is this like is the AP Style Guide saying crisscross applesauce?
Yeah, this is like ACLU, like approved. This is what they teach. Like my wife is a photographer, and she was saying, "Hey guys, just sit Indian style." Like, oh no, it's crisscross applesauce. I'm like, that's way less offensive than Indian style because it's a position of nobility.
I don't like it.
Stature. I don't like it either.
Well. As long as no
I love
offended.
applesauce. I'm not trying to offend any
applesauce is delicious.
Knott's is going to be the new sponsor for this show.
Got out of that awkwardly as best we could.
Honestly, you were looking at the remnants of. I started this new project called Uncharted 4. And one of the things that I love about Naughty Dog is their process for facial capture is I don't give a fuck. Literally, the technology that they use, they don't, like when we're actually shooting like we would, like we did The Last of Us, whatever you saw that, there was no facial camera or dots or anything on the face because they've got amazing animators that actually come in after the fact. So I was like, oh, do I have to be clean shaven? They're like, no, we're Naughty Dog. So, I get to grow this out, and then it just became this thing where I was like, I don't have to shave. I actually had one session where I got really scared. It was for another small game called Metal Gear that's coming out this year. And I thought we were done. There's 3 people that clapped now. Come on, I thought more people were excited for that.
Man, you know what? Ground Zero was a hard sell. Now you got a Fan of Pain, though. You got the Psycho, the Whale. Yeah, we can't wait to see how that comes.
I will say this. Obviously, 2014 is like 2015 is like 2014 and 2015 combined as far as the games that are coming out. It's like 2015 is going to be the best games of 2014.
Everything got pushed.
Everything got pushed. I will honestly say that as far as scope and everything else, Metal Gear beats it hands down. It is one of the most ambitious games that I've ever seen. And even I was surprised when we found out. We were at the Game Awards and we found out about the multiplayer component and everything. I was like, I had no idea.
How much do you get to see as a voice actor in terms of
on Metal Gear? This much.
Yeah.
Kojima plays everything tied to tied to the vest, close to the vest, whatever. He doesn't play it fast and loose.
He likes vests.
He likes vests. There are vests, and so we get to see a little bit, and a lot of it honestly is revealed in the narrative because there is a tie-in, of course, with the narrative and the gameplay. And so you're like, and you'll be reading this one thing, you're like, holy shit! So this is actually what we're doing. So that's one way that I kind of find out about stuff. But we're very compartmentalized. Like, Robin Atkin Downs, who plays Miller, will come in and it's basically, Shut Up Miller and Ocelot is Talks a Lot. Because we both just talk incessantly through this game. You're going to get really tired of hearing us.
Well, you're not used that much, so I mean, like it's always a refreshing thing to turn on a game.
I want to make sure that people know that hey, I'm in the game business. In it. It's very good.
Yeah, I know.
It's very good.
I've gotten a lot better at interviewing since you were last year.
I like how we're multiracial because mine's black and yours is white.
Yeah, it's true. That's a good observation. Mine's Ashley Johnson.
And mine's Dave Fennoy.
I know.
So I'm doing black out of black and white out of white.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Nobody laughs at that. That's okay.
No, they're
Dave Fennoy would laugh his ass off at that. He'd be like,
ha, Troy.
That's hilarious. It's the coolest. Hey, Hulu, bring back Dave Fennoy, please.
Yeah.
Because Dave Fennoy is the best thing to ever happen to Hulu. Anyway, hi.
Hey.
So we can start the show now. I got all my out of the way.
I believe we went onto a Metal Gear tangent because you were afraid they were going to make you shave.
I was afraid they were going to make me shave, and I literally I was like, don't make me. They're like, oh no, we're good. It's just VIA. We don't actually have to do the shave thing. Then. And so it's fine. And then it actually just became this thing. And there's a picture of me from London.
Yeah.
And it's a thing. And there was it was out to here.
It's becoming its own person.
Oh no! Like if they were like, hey, we need a Santa Claus down at Macy's. Do you want to? Oh, that's weird.
That's not the kind of crowd I want to be into.
Not the kind of crowd I want to be into.
So then what can you talk about with this Uncharted 4 business?
Man, it's incredible. I mean, honestly, Uncharted is one of my all-time favorite franchises. It just really is. I tell the story all the time. I remember I was doing this terrible, terrible movie, and the only thing that kind of kept me sane and not putting razor to skin was my friend let me borrow his PS3, and I sat down and I played Uncharted, and I realized it had been a while since, I was a big PS2 guy, but it had been a while since I actually sat down and played a really good third-person adventure game. And it just, I was amazed at the quality, the performances. I was like, who is this guy that's playing Nate Drake? I became this huge fanboy over Nolan North. And then I've watched the franchise grow into what it was. Uncharted 2 is hands down one of my favorite games of all time. Uncharted 3 had the biggest set pieces in the world, and the fact that they're able to continue a franchise and actually outlive kind of one of its predecessors, which obviously it's very inspired by the Indiana Jones thing, and it's had better hits than Indiana Jones did. 1 and 3 there is no 2, and we won't even mention 4.
Yeah.
But so here we are. We're 4 games in this franchise, and it's not only do you have wonderful characters and wonderful story, but it's like you've really you found the Lost Ark, you found all these things. Where do you go from here? And I love the story that they've been writing, and there's a little bit that's been announced as far as they're searching for this legendary city called Libertalia. Mm-hmm. It's clearly going to be like a pirate adventure from all the stuff you've seen from the teaser trailers. But they introduced this new character of Nate's older brother, and I remember getting the phone call from Neil. I was like, how would you like to play Nolan's brother? And I was like, dude, you're drunk. and he's like, no, I'm serious. And so we had this long conversation about it. And the first hurdle, you always want to ground yourself in a role, to make it believable and make it relatable. Because if you don't believe it, how do you expect anybody else to?
Sure.
And there's Travis Willingham. We talked about this a lot as my best friend, and there's so much about.
He threw a ball at my nuts.
He threw a ball at your nuts.
Yeah.
In a lovely thong. Which you wore.
Yeah. Believe it or not, that didn't. When I left IGN, that's not something I packed.
The
thong got
leave
thrown
it
away.
here, Naomi Kyle's desk. Don't. Why? I didn't mean it that way. You guys take it there. But anyway, so the relationship that Travis and I have is he's very much of my bigger younger brother. There's an older brother role that he takes even though he's younger than me. And there was something unique that I found about Sam's character, which is Nate Drake's brother in this, is that some people sometimes kind of hit a point in their life. Remember that guy in Napoleon Dynamite, where you could tell that he was still the quarterback in high school, just wanted so desperately to go back to that moment. There's certain people that hit a certain point in their life where they can just never get past that one thing. And the younger becomes the elder because they're able to move on and actually find their own identity. And that to me is the relationship between Sam and Nate. And it's me and Nolan, so there's a lot of off the cuff banter that happens on set. And Nolan and I've clearly worked together before in the past, but this is, for me as a fan and for me as a gamer, this is like, it's not lost on me at all. I'm working with one of the best people in the industry.
And when I announced you're coming on the show,
Sure.
people start tweeting questions at me.
Sure.
An interesting one that I thought that kept coming up was ask him.
What's up with his beard?
No, well that's just normal. That's people on the
Sure.
street want to ask you that
Sure.
question.
What is
These are
up with your beard?
What is going on there, sir? Have you fallen on hard times? No, they were talking about the fact that
the spirit of the demon.
you're coming into a role that was previously going to be Todd Stashwick. And if that's weird for you, if it's not weird for you, correct me if I'm wrong, this kind of recasting in the VO community happens all the time. Because I remember when Dave Fennoy came on, he talked about the fact that, I wasn't the original Lee Everett. There was somebody else and it didn't work, and then they brought me in.
Yeah, this happens all the time, and what I really applaud Naughty Dog for doing is being able to, that's a really hard punch to roll with. Mm-hmm. And what happens invariably, I mean, one of the classic stories is who played Marty McFly in Back to the Future.
Eric Stoltz then
Bingo.
begat.
Exactly. But they
Michael J. Fox.
shot for like 2 months,
Yeah.
3 months, and that's a big budget movie, and that's Robert Zemeckis and Steven Spielberg. If those guys can't get it right at first, and it wasn't necessarily that Eric Stoltz was wrong. Clearly, Oscar winner, he's good, It was just like, hey, we actually want to take the character in a different direction. We want to take the story in a different direction. And so there's a lot of stuff that changed. Yeah. And I really applaud Naughty Dog for being able to come in and go, okay, let's roll up our sleeves, let's get really, really dirty, and let's do this. I wasn't the first Reese on Borderlands. It's just, things happen, you were like, okay, you're clearly talented, but this isn't working for what we want. It has nothing to do, it's not a reflection on the actor who gets that. It's just, the story changes, the character changes.
How have Neil and Bruce not crumbled under the pressure of, number 1, coming off The Last of Us, number 2, worrying about a sequel, number 3, worrying about a movie, number 4, now working on Uncharted 4?
Uncharted 4, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Those guys are made of steel, solid steel. And honestly, I mean, if ever there was a platform for me to be like, let me tell you about those guys, this would be it, But I'm consistently and constantly humbled and impressed and inspired by those guys. Bruce Straley as a human is one of the most amazing, grounded individuals. Like, I want to date him. He's just like the coolest guy. But as a game designer, I mean, the way that his mind works, he leaves me in the dust. I mean, it's just like, and Neil as well. Neil is a very accomplished game designer as well. So having that asset as far as, as well as being the most brilliant director that I've ever worked with. He's just phenomenal, and as a writer as well. They don't crumble because they don't have the opportunity to. I think if given the chance, they would probably crumble, and maybe they'll do that 5 years later from now, and they'll go on like a crazy heroin binge together. I don't know, but
you heard it here first.
But the two of them work, and there was a really cool moment that Neil and I had where I was sitting out on my balcony, and he and I were talking about some different stuff, and it was just a little short, a little curt, and I was like, dude, do we have a problem? Are we okay? He's like, oh, okay, so this is that moment. He goes, so Neil and Bruce, every once in a while, will just kind of have a moment where, because, one's off making one side of the game, the other's making the other, and, if you don't work together a lot of times, you get really stuck in your own rut, and then you kind of try to compare. It's like, let me show you what I've been making, let me show you what I've been making. You're like, He's like, so like every 2-3 weeks or whatever we'll have, or 6 weeks, we'll have this thing where we have to come, like, have a come to Jesus meeting outside on the balcony. And it was like, this is our moment right now. We have to do this. And I've never had that kind of relationship with, like, a professional relationship, much less a personal relationship with someone that I'm working with, to where we can get that real and that dirty and be that exposed. Because when we're dealing with, especially The Last of Us, the subject nature that we were doing and the places that Neil really wanted to take us as characters, man, you got to be naked in every way. And you foster a relationship that comes out of that isn't just, all right, well, see you on the next one. It's something that's long lasting.
Yeah.
And it's not always happy. It's not always good. So I'm fortunate that I have people and creative partners that I work with in Neil and Bruce that are able to, we can tussle if we need to and argue when we need to, because all that we care about at the end of the day is that our good is our better and our better is our best.
Very nice. Look at that.
Dude, that was that. Okay. If we had a red sign.
Yeah, if we could have afforded chairs, the next thing we could afford was an applause sign, and that would have been your cue.
And that thing would have landed like significantly. I'm sorry, I watched Kevin Spacey do his
oh God, on the Golden Globes?
His Golden Globe speech, and I was like, that's like the most awesome speech ever. I just wanted to be better. I just wanted to be better. It's so great.
I'm sure he's going to see this up and be like, oh, he one-upped me, that bastard.
Yeah.
So what's the rest of 2015 look like for you?
It's crazy. We're eventually going to come out with the second episode of Borderlands, which people have been loving it. I literally laughed out loud to certain parts, and that's completely in part to Pierre and Nick, who are the writers from Telltale, and I'm having a blast doing that. We just did some stuff for episode 2 not that long ago. So no date announced yet, but it's coming soon. Whenever they feel like it.
They just keep making you wait.
And then obviously Uncharted 4 is coming out. We have no idea when, but they definitely said 2015. Metal Gear is coming out. Arkham Knight, which is going to be another kind of like huge monstrosity of a game. I'm so glad that they pushed it, because the last thing I would have wanted them to do is like,
for their finale, right? You have to come out and fire
go out with a bang.
You're two-facing that.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah. Okay. What about you can announce the game here. I'm sure you're in a few unannounced ones.
Look at you. Do it, Keeley.
Exclusive.
What else? I'm trying to. I'm sure that I'm missing out on something.
I don't want to get in trouble.
I think that's it. I'm probably gonna walk out the door and go, son of a bitch.
Well, you hit the big ones.
Well, yeah, and then this year has been like, there's been a real big focus we started last year. I announced on your show, it was the first time, even though the date was so wildly wrong, that I was coming out with an album.
Yeah, that's out now.
And so that's finally out now. People have been receptive to it so far.
What's the name of it?
It's called Sitting in the Fire.
There you go. It's available on iTunes and other services like that.
Yeah, iTunes, Amazon. I finally got a website, which is weird for me. It's troybaker.net. Because .com is apparently taken by a guy who really, really needs it.
GeoCities.troybaker.
Yeah, GeoCities, earthlink.net /. But yeah, we're gonna play a little gig tonight, and we're gonna do more of these. Is great. We sat down and played with. The first time we had actually played these songs together since we recorded the album with the guys, and we did an all-day rehearsal yesterday. And our guitarist James Bowen always phrases things and summates things in the best way. And he was like, man, these songs are kind of like taking on like a dark Americana vibe. It's like Tom Petty after a bad breakup and a good bottle of bourbon. I was like, all right, that's a great byline if ever I heard it. So yeah, that's the focus for this year is those games and trying to write some more music and play out more live.
All right. Well, everybody, buy Troy's album.
Yes.
Buy all the video games he's in. Follow him on Twitter. Troy.
She? I don't know what that word is.
I don't know that either. I thought that was something just cool the LA people do. She, man. She, totally. You've always been a great friend. You've always been a great guest. Thank you for your support of Up at Noon.
Thank you for having me on your last show, brother. Thank you.
Thank you to Brian Altano, Troy Baker, you, my audience. Thank you, everyone at home, too. I hope you know how much Up at Noon's meant to me. And I hope you like that tear up too, because man, you guys were complimenting me on the Tim Schafer tear up last week. That was way worse. Brian said a lot, and Up at Noon's been the most special time of my life at IGN. And the one thing to take away is something Brian hit on right. Don't ever let anyone tell you your dreams can't come true. When I was in the 4th grade, I said I wanted to write about video games. And at 23, IGN gave me that opportunity. And then they continued to give me everything I ever asked for from them till I quit on them. So that was a bad investment. But no, they've done so much for me, and I've been so happy serving you guys each and every week. Thank you so much. Until next time, I'm going back to bed. DaveFanoy.com. Oh my God, DaveFanoy!
Previously on Up at Noon.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the first Up at Noon with Greg Miller. And before anybody posts any comments to this video, no, you suck.
I would fight for the motherland. Be all I could, I would make a stand. I'd walk through the fire till the body falls. Don't fall, I would protect you. All that I've got to do now, yeah, I could say